You never know what your classmates in college are going to become. Here's a story. One night, I had a very awkward dinner, this is my freshman year, with Elizabeth Olsen. She ended up doing fine. Another person that did fine, James Franco. Story about him that's interesting is that there's a photo that exists of my arm around his shoulder and my family gathered next to him from the May 2011 Tisch School of the Arts graduation. That photo's still on Facebook. The final thing I want to tell you is that I had no idea about one person in my college. I had no idea that when I saw this girl standing there in black t-shirt, black sweatpants, performing Shakespeare monologues in my class at the Stella Adler Studio of Acting, that Ariana DiLorenzo would grow up to become the queen of immersive nightlife. And she also happened to head up Ariana and the Rose, the very popular New York-based synth pop band. I always knew that Ariana would do something great. I just had no idea that it would involve that much glitter. Ariana joins me today to talk about how she became Ariana and the Rose, the time Kanye saw her perform, and we even go the route of UFOs. Want to know what Ariana thinks about them? It's a very glamtastic episode. I'm your host, Greg Bornstein, and this is Open Loops, Conversations That Bend. I consider it an affront to my family that you haven't heard about Anchor. It's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain, okay? Let me just lay this out for you. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. And get this, okay? Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money, moolah, from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Craving some brain stimulation? Want to go on a head trip but lack a clear destination? What if there was a place you could always go? A theme park for intellectual escape. A place where you can have fun and expand your mind again and again and again. The spot's right here. It's a podcast called Open Loops, Conversations That Bend, and I'm your host and chief looper, Greg Bornstein. That's right. This is a show where we have many conversations, many featured guests, and the goal is for them to share mind-blowing insights and mind-blowing truths about the topics that take us away from it all. Magic, art, entertainment, hypnosis, secrets, psychology, spirituality, conspiracy, the supernatural, and of course, who and what we really are. It's your late night talk show for the shamelessly fringe. Welcome to the show. I'm Greg. Thanks for being here. Now, today's episode, I was thinking about booking this guest as soon as I started this podcast. I was so excited at the idea of talking to her. Ariana DiLorenzo, I knew from doing plays in college, doing classical theater, Chekhov scenes, and Henrik Ibsen and all this stuff. And then it's interesting when people pivot, because when I was in school, and she talks about it in this episode, I definitely thought she just wanted to be like a film and TV actress, become a film and TV star. I had no idea that she had this vision of herself in these fanciful costumes and purple hair and and just like a quasi-futuristic garb. That's what she does now. She does music videos. She does these live party events. She's doing something really cool, creating immersive theatrical simulations of different worlds in a contained environment where hopefully there's alcohol and other forms of stimulants to add to the stimulates. You know what I mean? The stimulus to the stimulates. You know what I mean? Yeah, something like that. Ariana's great. The thing I love about her is that even though she is so successful in this field, she really is. She she has such a big heart. I mean, fame has not gone to her head. She would argue she's not famous, but a lot of people listen to this girl's music for sure. She's still the same warm presence that I knew in college, and I knew she would be. And I also knew that she would have a very interesting take on how she went this direction, as well as the mechanisms behind the magic. Because for those of you listening, and especially the early episodes, I don't know if you remember, I told you this show was about two things. One is the intellectual escape, which is like, are there aliens? Are there UFOs? Is there a group of people in power who is in control of everything? And we're all robots and da 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 da, all that stuff. Fine. But then there's the other side, which is escapist intellectualism, which means if you have an escape, how do we break it down? What's going on? What are the dynamics at play? Ariana gave me both. She gave me both. Like, I really thought it was going to be more of an escapist intellectual conversation. Like, this girl works in the escape industry via her music and her events and light and space and performing at House of Yes. And I definitely dig into it with her. I go into what is going on in her head as an artist as she's creating these pieces. And she gets very vulnerable with me. She talks about her aspirations beyond even the spectacle she's created, but she also breaks down the psychology of the spectacle in a way that I really appreciate because I see it, I live it, and I want to know how it works. That intrigues me. And also, part of the reason she likes the escape is the ideas it spurs in her mind. That's where we get into UFOs and other intergalactic encounters. She does the full loop. Ariana DiLorenzo is a looper. Ariana and the Rose fits into loopology. I am so happy she came on the show. I am so happy to share this conversation with all of you. If you know someone that might enjoy conversations like this, someone that is looking to escape a little bit, maybe expand their mind, friend, family, boss, please do share this podcast. And if you could go on Apple Podcasts and subscribe to Open Loops Conversations That Bend and rate it and leave a review, that would definitely help get more of these episodes out there. And that way we can bring on even more exciting people. Ariana's pretty exciting. She's doing some awesome stuff. I'm really excited to share this with you. I hope you enjoy Ariana of Ariana and the Rose. Today on Open Loops, we have Ariana DiLorenzo of Ariana and the Rose.
Hi.
Thanks so much for coming on, Ariana. I'm really excited to talk to you about everything you've been up to.
Thanks for having me. This is so fun.
Yes. Do you remember when we actually first met each other? I have a very vivid memory of freshman orientation.
I have like no memory of freshman orientation. I don't remember meeting anyone. Like literally, I don't remember. I mean, like I obviously know we were in group together.
Yes.
And
yes.
like I remember like memories of being at Stella Adler and being at NYU, like and being in those things, but I don't remember like actually meeting anyone. So if you remember, I would love to hear.
Yeah.
Your
Well,
version of it.
we both went to NYU. We both studied at Stella Adler Studio of Acting as part of the studio program there. And I remember that we met, you had to like meet people either a year above you in Washington Square Park, and they were going to walk with you from
Oh
Washington Square
yeah.
to Stella
Yes.
Adler.
Yes.
And I remember getting in a conversation with you, and what was interesting was like, I was from Dover, Mass. I mean, I guess I still am from there. But I was from there and looking at New York, and being like, wow, what is this place? Is it everything I want? Are there these sort of alt theatrical scenes? And like, I was very into the alt thing, just sort of my curiosity was speaking. You were like, yeah, I've lived here my whole life, Greg. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, great. You're going to be a great tour guide for like the culture of the city. And what we talked about was, I was like, Ariana, tell me, like, I know that we're required to read A Doll's House, like freshman year. They're making us read these classics, Chekhov. We're going to have to do Shakespeare. But like, is there a scene for doing like underground alternative versions of these classics that's interesting, unique? And now you're performing as, I mean, I guess they've linked synth pop artist Ariana and the Rose, right? That's sort of like your brand, the
Yes.
way they've labeled it. But you are
Yes.
doing like, I mean, you've created a full show that is very much like an offshoot of what those underground kind of specifically immersive events became. And I just find it interesting that you kind of like landed there.
Yeah, it's definitely not. I'm sure I don't know what my answer would have been to you at that time, but I certainly didn't know anything about it then. I would have been like, I don't
Yeah.
know, I like Broadway.
Right, right.
I came to sort of, I mean, it took me a long time to get to that kind of where I landed with a lot of that stuff. And the
Yeah,
show
would you have imagined you would have gone to an Ariana and the Rose show in 2007?
Oh yeah, 100%. Me in 2007 would have like bought tickets to that show, but I
Yes.
wouldn't have. I would have thought. I mean, me like whatever it is, 13 years later or whatever is. I ended up doing stuff that like I didn't know I could do probably then. I ended up a part of a scene, and I collaborate with people that are like way cooler than me. So I really ended
Right,
up like I
right.
really ended up with those kinds of people that I really respect, and I think I looked up to, and didn't think that I was ever going to be. I didn't know that. I didn't really even know it existed, to be honest, when I was a freshman in college. I mean, I wanted to do like straight theater. Like if you had asked me literally going into that program and going into conservatory, I thought I wanted to do like Chekhov and Shakespeare in the
Yeah.
Park, and I wanted to do like serious drama. And I definitely was like writing music and doing stuff on the side, but it had not dawned on me. It wouldn't be for like a few years until it
None
dawned
of
on
us
me.
knew this. I think I was very surprised when I first saw you went in this direction. Like, I think I saw you put out a music video, and like, it was no
Yeah,
longer, it was like Ariana and the Rose. It was like, there wasn't even like, I didn't even know your last name anymore. And
yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, whoa, how did this happen? Like, where did this girl come from? I mean, I know she did a semester at ETW, but is this what came out of it? Like, experimental
Yeah.
theater is that, like, I was kind of shocked. What was kind of the jumping moment for you?
I did. Well, it was actually, I knew while I was still in school that I didn't want to pursue acting anymore. I started really young. I went to a performing arts high school.
Right.
I grew up in New York. I got my first job, my first like acting job. I was 13. I was in the American Girl Review. It was like this off-Broadway show based on the American Girl
Oh
dolls.
my gosh, which one were
Um,
you?
I was Molly,
I was about to
who
ask. I was about to ask
yeah, I
if you're
was
Molly.
Molly, who was the like 1940, I think it was like 1942, World War II. I did like a tap dance and all this stuff. I was also cast as Josefina,
Oh, I wasn't as
Who
familiar. My
was like,
sister Rachel had a Molly, so my
yeah,
middle sister. Yeah.
Molly was really like the popular one. Josefina was
Yeah.
because diversity in casting was really not a thing at that
Right.
point.
Right.
So, that was like an issue. But I was like double cast. And I mean, I was working all through high school. I remember I missed my Stella Adler orientation.
Oh.
I missed our orientation and I missed our first day of classes because I had a callback. I was working, I had like an agent and a manager and the whole thing, which at the time I didn't understand. I probably didn't have like the gratitude for it that I would have
Yeah.
had because I didn't realize how hard that was to even like get representation. And when you're a kid, they don't care if you have like a resume. So it's easier in a lot of ways to get an agent. Cause like it's not like you're walking in at 14 being like, here's my credentials. Like
Yes.
they're like, are
Yes.
you
Yes.
cute? Like, are you cute? Can you read lines? You know what I mean? Like do you fit a sort of type or whatever? But I missed my first 2 days for a callback and then to film a commercial. And I got like sat down by Adler and they were like, you can't do this. Like, if you are going to be here, you need to be here. So I spent my whole freshman year like secretly sneaking out on my lunch break and leaving early and auditioning and
Wow.
whatever. And it
Did
was
other people know
really
this? I know you had close, like people that you were very
my,
close with, but how?
yeah, like Scarlett, who's still my
Yes.
best friend, Scarlett Moreno, shout out. She's my creative director actually now.
She's great. She's awesome.
And is very insanely talented and doing all sorts of wonderful things. Yeah, I mean, she knew about it. My friends knew about it, but no one else. I'm like, my parents knew about it, but no one else knew. And like,
Did you feel like you had to keep that a secret from us? Like if we were all eating lunch together, like were you like, did you have this kind of secret life to keep from all the other
I mean,
people in our year?
well, yeah, I mean, there was like a lot of people who were like very like Adlery, like teachers' pets, right? Like that's like I think that's
Yes.
anything. I don't even think I don't even think that it's specific to school. I think you put any group of people, the same group of people, 15, 20, 40 people in the same environment every day over and over again, you're inherently going to have some sort of like that kind of cliche like high school mentality of people that like
Yes.
are teachers' pets or whatever that is that happens in office environments, on film sets. It doesn't matter where.
Right. Right.
It's just, I think it's just a little bit human nature. But yeah, I mean, I didn't want to like say because there was definitely people that I felt like would like go tattle on me or whatever. You know what I mean? Or like, or
Totally.
or if they thought that I was like I don't know that I like was a dick for like not being there. I didn't know. It also was like no one's business. I just was like trying to work. I was trying to,
Yeah.
I was like trying to get a job.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it was really
Right.
stressful. So I stopped auditioning entirely. By the time I was a sophomore, I stopped. I left my agent, I left my manager, which was in hindsight, if anybody listens to this and they want to be an actor, like don't do that. Like
I
in
was going to
hindsight,
ask.
like leave school. You know what I mean? Like don't be like that was so dumb. Like I was working and auditioning and like I didn't want to do it. I ultimately I ended up like not acting at all because I didn't really love it anymore. And I studied abroad in Argentina my junior year. And that was really when I was like, you know what, I think I was like pretty burnt out. So it's kind of crazy to be burnt out at like 19 years old.
This is a crazy question then that I have, which makes me, because I just see so many like potential different life trajectories that you could have had
Yeah.
based on this story. Like, okay, let's say you did do your advice. You stopped going to college and you kept auditioning and stuff. Like, would
Yeah.
you be where you are now? Would you not have been burnt out? What do you think would have happened?
Oh my God, I have no idea. I don't know. I mean, maybe who knows? I could have auditioned and gotten some job and my life could be really different, or I could have moved to LA, or I could have, I mean, who knows what would have happened, or maybe I would have been burnt out all the same and ultimately ended up exactly where I am now. I don't know.
Because that's what I wonder, if there's like, when people have these kind of paths and these ideas, like sort of just I guess a theme I explore in my own life all the time is there a thing you're destined to find or destined to think differently about based on some previous held beliefs?
Yeah. I mean, listen, had I not done it exactly the way I did it, ultimately, I didn't start the show, the kind of like underground immersive thing you're referring to is a show I started called Light in Space. And Light in Space wouldn't have Light in Space is the direct result of me going to NYU, going to ETW. I did summer courses. I'm sorry. I did summer courses the summer before my senior year. I wasn't even in ETW yet because I was a journalism double major, and I had to take summer school classes in order to finish all of my coursework to do 2 majors in 4 years.
Wow.
And so I took the summer before, I studied abroad, and then the summer before my senior year, I took I was like, I was probably like, what can I take that like fulfills something I need, but like isn't going to be hard probably.
Yes.
And I ended up in this class where it was a downtown theater class. And
wow. There you go. Okay.
And I was like, this sounds fun. I want to spend and it was like, all you did was like go see shows. Like that was the class.
I love that.
And I did a lot of that at NYU, where I like found things that like were classes that ultimately you could just like go see and do things. That was like a big thing I did.
So lucky when you found those. I mean,
oh my God, it was incredible. I found a whole class. By the time I was a senior, I found a class where you study about a place and then you go to the place. I went to Vietnam after I graduated. I wish I had found that class earlier.
Wow.
Oh my God. Oh yeah. You can go, they would take you to like South Africa. They went to Ghana. They went to South Africa. They went to China. Oh my God. It was it was like truly the most incredible course at NYU. I don't know why everybody didn't try and take that class. No one knew about it.
Wow. How do you fall into like experiential journeys so easily?
I seek them out. I look for them.
Okay. Is that just like a magical coincidence that happens in your life? Or did you know going in that there were like, at the end, you're going to go to Vietnam?
Oh, like, no. You knew you had to pay. You had to like pay extra for the trip.
So you are like actively like you are hunting to live in a lot of ways. Like you are looking for.
That's actually a great way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still like that, I think. But yeah, I mean, I was like trying to travel, and I guess I can't remember who told me about this class. I know there's a friend of mine named Marlena who was in ETW was taking it. Maybe she told me about it.
Yeah.
But she's an incredible actress also. But I was already going to ETW, but I took this summer course and I met a boy named Will Detlefson who was in Playwrights Horizons, and he was starting that summer. He was starting an experimental theater, a devised theater company. And I had no idea what devised theater was. I was like, what does that mean?
Yes.
Isn't all theater devised?
Right, exactly.
And we made this show. It was like 14 or 15 people in the cast and the company. And we made this ridiculous show called Televise This. And the show was problematic and not, obviously we were like, kids making this thing. Funny enough, actually, Kanye West ended up coming to the show, like randomly. Oh my God, it was such a funny thing.
How did he find out about this? Did he have a connection?
A friend of mine named Farah, her boyfriend was living in a building. Kanye West was dating Amber Rose at the time. And I guess Amber Rose like lived in this guy David's building, and they were coming downstairs, and like basically Kanye was like waiting for Amber. I mean, Kanye was like famous, obviously.
Yeah.
And he was like waiting in the vestibule for his girlfriend, just like chilling because his girlfriend was like taking a long time to get ready.
Oh my
classic.
gosh.
And basically he like struck up a conversation and was like, they were like, oh, we're big fans, whatever. He's like, oh, where are you headed? And they were like, oh, we're going to see this, like, our friend is doing this, sort of weird show at NYU, and we were going. And Kanye was like, can I come? And they were like, totally. And he came for like the first act.
Wait a minute. Do you think this first act made an impact on his bid for presidency?
I mean, I don't want to be intertwined at all with any Kanye West choices. Yes, 100%, absolutely. Kanye West.
I want the Ariana and the Rose soundbite right now. You are directly responsible.
Had Kanye West not seen the first 40 minutes of our ridiculous show, he would have never gone on to do anything he did. We're responsible for all.
Yes. Context, ladies and gentlemen. But yes.
Basically, we ended up, I was a part of this theater company, and it really was my introduction into the downtown theater scene. And we ended up doing shows at La Mama and all these other things. And then I ended up moving to London once I really started doing music, and I was going to all these kind of like house parties in London. And
I was
all
going to say, like,
things.
The Box is over there too. Like, I went to the Box over there before I went to the Box here in New York. Like, it's
I think
over there with that stuff.
I think the Box in New York has like more of that sort of experimental
right.
stuff going on, but they have all sorts of different things. Their nightlife is like a whole other vibe. And I was kind of going to all these parties in East London where my friends were in bands, because I was in like the music scene there. I was really writing. I was working as a songwriter when I was living in London, and I ended up kind of at these places, and it was sort of like the melding of the two things. And then my friends were all still actors and performers and dancers. So I had friends in Sleep No More in New York. And like all of my friends were sort of working in these immersive theater things. And, you know, the team was like not the team yet. The team ultimately, like Rachel Chapkin, who's a part of the, who's like one of the founding members of the team, has gone on to win a Tony Award, and she directed The Great Comet of 1812 and Hadestown, and they really like pioneered that kind of like sort of like underground devised theater movement. So like all of that stuff was happening at the same time, and I didn't realize I'm not involved in that, and I don't know those people, but I was a part of seeing all of that, and I knew a lot of the kids that were like taught by those people. And it was sort of in my periphery. And so when I went into like a completely different thing, and I went into music, I was just still surrounded by it because I love theater, and all my friends are still, you know, performers. So I was just seeing my friends in shows. You know, before Sleep No More was like really this like big sort of immersive theater event in New York. And there's this event in London called, oh my God, my brain, Secret Cinema, where they take movies and they recreate like the entire film set, and you buy a ticket and you get dressed up like as a character in the movie, and they send out like who you are. And like, you know,
that's so cool. I love that.
It was really incredible. And they took over an old printing factory that they signed like a 3 or 4 year lease on it. And they did, Back to the Future. I went to the Star Wars one, was the first one that I went to. And they recreated like all of Tatooine, and then they would show the movie, and it was incredible. And like, I was sort of seeing all of this stuff pop up around me, and I was living in London at the time, but coming back to New York a lot because my family's here and my friends are here. And it was sort of like a mix of everything stirred together. It was like being a part of all of that in a small way, coming out of school, and then seeing all of these like house parties and stuff in London, and seeing kind of the way people really love to party to live music, and then seeing immersive theater. So the show I ended up making was like a real like soup of a lot of things kind of put together, and I decided to just sort of like put it into a pop show.
Here's my question
I just like
for you.
applied it to pop music.
What comes first, Ariana and the Rose, and then this show, or is the show making Ariana and the Rose?
Oh, no, I mean, Ariana and the Rose came first for sure.
Right.
Multiple incarnations of it. Original incarnations of Ariana and the Rose are very, very different than what it is now.
I was going to say, could you just be like, you know, like Grammy Award winning Ariana and the Rose? You go to the MTV, you know, music. Like, could you be happy with that life? Could you just be happy doing shows? Or does there have to be this? Because I kind of think there does. I buy into it at least. There has to be a little bit of like showbiz magic to the whole thing.
Oh my God, you're so sweet. Well, I mean, the show that we do, Light and Space, is certainly not, I think the MTV Movie Awards would be like way more showbiz magic than what Light and Space is. But I mean, Light and Space sort of like moved much more into club kid world, which I was like never, I mean, I guess in hindsight, I probably was more of a club kid than I think I was, but in like the spectrum of like really kids who like went to raves and were going to like Brooklyn warehouse parties when we were in school. Like I did a little bit of it, but like not really a lot.
I was going to say, I never thought that was you.
No, I'm not like a raver. Like that wasn't my vibe. I was not that. So the fact that I kind of ended up making a show that, but Light and Space isn't really fully that either. It just pulls from it, but it sits much more inside of club world, which I think my music definitely like found a home in club world early on. And I don't know if I was like totally comfortable with that because it was so different. I like started as like a singer songwriter with a piano. I wanted to be like Sarah Bareilles or like Ingrid Michaelson or Regina Spektor. Like I wanted to be like a girl at her piano, like singing my little songs.
Yes. Yes.
And I do think I no matter how much I've tried to do that, that's just like never been my path. Like I've always just like found a home inside of this like nightlife world, which again I think pulls back to that immersive theater world and all of that. I mean, I definitely
Could
I'm
you
like
right now, if someone was like, hey, look, we're going to give you tons of money, but you have to drop this show and we want the piano and the singer and the mic girl. That's what we want. Could you do it? Would you do it?
I mean, it would depend on so many things. I mean, what people, no one ever just gives you tons of money for nothing. So you have to,
That's fair.
I mean, I've learned a lot of things as I've like gone on my little way in music, but like,
Well,
yeah,
here's what I mean. You know, I heard an interview once with Weird Al Yankovic of all people, and this will apply. Don't worry. Yeah, Weird Al was like, I have always been upset that, or he said he wasn't like devastated, but it always kind of rubbed him the wrong way that his number one hits were the parodies and not some of the original stuff that he really took pride in making.
Yeah.
And I wonder if there is
a
bit of a parallel in the sense that like Ariana Rose, you're expecting a big party, you're expecting the lights, you're expecting the spectacle, which I, just for the record, I love and I want in the type of performing artist I see. But like, do you ever think like, and I just wonder if this is a showbiz sort of like, oh man, why don't they ever see I have this part of me sort of thing?
Well, I mean, Lord,
And it's early.
Like
it's early
I'm
on.
like on Miley Cyrus, so I mean, no one really. It's not like Ariana Rose is some like household name where like I couldn't change it if I wanted. But
right.
I think that I do have moments like that though, and I do have moments in my show where I could like sit at a piano and play. And I don't know if I don't think a singer-songwriter show, I don't think swinging the pendulum all the way the other way would like fulfill it all either. I think it's like, how do you make something that can hold both? And you know, there's a little bit of I think any artistic career, it doesn't matter what your medium is, you have to have a little bit of like understanding of what your opening is and where can you find like the crack that can get yourself in the door to kind of get yourself, you know, get your art in front of people in a way that they want. Like not all of it is about, I mean, that's a lesson that they don't really teach you in art school. And I don't think
they don't.
I don't even know if honestly at 20 any of us would have been willing to hear it. But there's a balance between making the things you want and that fulfill you, and also finding what people are telling you they need and they want. Because just making things to make them, that isn't like fully kind of hearing what whatever community it is that you find yourself in, because inherently artists always find themselves a part of some sort of scene. No one ever like operates in isolation for them, that at least that I've seen.
Yes.
Making art is contextual. So you always have to, anytime I've had like success with anything, it's been because I saw that there was like a need for something, or that there was like a want or an openness to something. And I was like, okay, I think I know how to like create for that. And I'm a big believer, at least for me and for music specifically, but I'm a believer that art is made to be given away, and that the audience ultimately like completes is the last piece of a puzzle. So, you know, doing it, if I do have tons of songs I write just for me, and sometimes I find ways to sort of work it out and figure out, you know, what would make sense in order to like release it or not. And I don't feel precious about any of it. Like,
it seems like you're having fun with this. Like, I'm not, you know, I don't want to portray the idea that like, oh, now I'm stuck being this, you know, like I am the House of Yes girl. Like, yeah, I have like, no, man, that's a fun life. Like, I would love to, if someone came to me right now, they're like, Greg, we want to turn this podcast into a House of Yes immersive experience, I would jump onto that in seconds.
I mean, it was not, I like gunned for House of Yes. I knew the show had to be at House of Yes. That was not like an accident by any stretch of the imagination. But I also, like, if you had told me 2 years before that or a year before that, like, hey, you're going to end up like doing a show at House of Yes, I would have been like, how? Like, what do you mean?
Yeah. I mean, it feels inherently it's perfect. Light plus space. Like that's what you like. It's like one of the emails that if you're I'm on the email list for House of Yes. Like it's like they just put kind of like big
Yeah.
broad terms together in a way that's like intrigues you, but you also know that like a light and space party that you know is going to have Ariana the Rose music is going to be amazing. Like it kind of just it's something that it seems great to sign up for.
I mean, we when we did the very first one, I did the first show ever in London in like a little photographic studio that was like not meant to have music in it, and we had to like, I mean, it was like really budget. We had no money. I ended up actually getting Red Bull Music to fund our bar because I had done something else for them as Ariana and the Rose, and they were like, well, we're actually looking to create like little documentary episodes about artists that are creating kind of out of the box ideas if you're working on anything. And I had this idea for Light and Space in my head, and I was like, actually, I do have this idea, and I didn't have any money to do it. So basically, they funded our bar. I got a photographic studio to give us their studio after hours, and I paid them like a really low rate for it. And I scrounged it together, and we made the show, and we like sold out that show. Like that show in London ended up being like over capacity. We had like a line out the door because I had no idea if like the idea was even going to work, if anyone was even going to like it. And that show was really different than ultimately what the show at House of Yes was. But we did that show in London. It was packed. I was like, oh, okay, got it. This works. I had a friend of mine who was a voguer that we like cleaned out like one of their like supply closets, and we covered it with like this like glitter fabric that we found. And he was just like in there, and we wanted people to think it was the bathroom.
Yeah.
So like we had like people who were like working at the show and like people who were a part of the show. If someone was like looking for the bathroom, we'd always have them point them in the direction of that closet because it looked just like a door. And then they'd open it, and then there was this like guy covered in sequins that was just like voguing in it, and they'd be like, oh my God.
I love this.
So that was like the initial ideas were very like that. They were just very like, what are just like really simple things we can do. And then after that, I was like, okay, I think this is a real idea. And I'm from New York, and I wanted to start in New York. So I think it took me like a year to build it, between like getting the money for it and finding the right team. And it took me like 4 or 5 months to get House of Yes to say yes to me.
Right.
And then we did it. And then we did our first one, and then we sold our first one out, which was like the whole experience of doing the first show was probably like one of the crazier things I've done, but it was really fun. And my friends from LA like flew in for it. It was like a wedding almost. Like,
yeah,
I mean,
this is kind of crazy. I mean,
it was filled with people I didn't know, but like all of my friends came, my family came. Like it was like, I was like, okay, this better be good because people are showing up to this.
Yeah. Well, Ariana, I mean, look, I'm so curious kind of your thoughts on what you think actually, what do you attribute to that success? Do you think it's because obviously you have a fan base, you obviously, from what I've, at least looking at sort of the response to your work over the years, like people definitely resonate with your message. You definitely have a lot of, and I do want to kind of go into some of the topics of the songs you cover, as well as, your perspectives on love and sort of but, like what exactly do you think you attribute to that success? Were people buying into Ariana the Rose? Were they buying into an immersive experience? Was it right place, right time? Like, how do you think you sold that London experience out?
Well, no one knew who I was, and no one knew who I was when we were doing the House of Yes show either. Like this was 2016. I mean, that's 4 years ago. And obviously the first show in New York was 2017. So like, people had no idea who I was. So it was not sold on the strength of Ariana and the Rose, the band, or Ariana and the Rose, the artist. Like that was not the case. And even now, we've done like probably 10 or 11 shows since, and one in LA, and we moved venues in New York. And like, even now, I would say that like it's 50% Ariana and the Rose fans. We were about to go back to House of Yes right before COVID. And I was interested to see kind of what that split would be. But those initial shows, I mean, no, people came because they heard about this like fun, weird party. People were like, what do you mean there's like some galactic glitter party?
Yes,
You know,
totally.
okay, I'll go to that. Like, I think there were people that came to that very first House of Yes show where like the show is built in a way where like you don't really need to know who Ariana and the Rose is. And I built it that way so that if it was somebody coming because they bought the ticket because of me, they were pumped because they got all this extra, it was this whole extra thing. And then if you didn't know who I was, the idea would have been that you ultimately see the concert and you would hopefully be like, oh, who is that? So it was meant to be a hybrid of like a place for people to discover the music if they didn't know what it was. And also like if you were to buy a ticket, it would feel like a concert, that a kind of concert you had never been to before.
Yeah. I think you have a lot of savvy when it comes to this kind of stuff. Like I know Scarlett too. Like Scarlett is very you know, she's very smart when it comes to obviously fashion, but among many other things. And she's kind of like really, even back in the school days, like, you know, that was a girl I thought understood branding very well.
She's like inherently, she's like the most naturally branded person I've ever met. Like Scarlett was like an aesthetic before Instagram existed. Scarlett was like a human aesthetic.
Yes.
And she's still like that. She's still like that.
Don't you think this is my $1 million tip for actors? If I was like listening to your journey and listening to like what works in recent years, like I would, if I was going to acting school now and really doing it over, I would look for what are my auditors? What are the people that are going to watch me audition in the world? What experience are they signing up for? Like
Totally.
I would be like, you know, like I wouldn't even put my name out there. I'd be like, I'm the blank guy. I'm the this guy. Like, I feel like that's kind of a counterintuitive thing. And actors, if you are listening, like, take this advice. Because like, yeah, it's so hard to just be a, you know, if you were Ariana DiLorenzo, then there's another first name and last name out there that also sings.
Oh, 100. Yeah, I mean, that was it. When everyone was like, why is it Ariana the Rose? I don't get it. And I was like, yeah, because like, who needs another, like, I'm not going to be Adele, right? So who needs another, who needs like, the moniker to me just felt like I could step in and out of it. And I didn't ultimately know kind of which way it would go. And the whole like galactic thing and aesthetic that I kind of ended up living inside of grew out of a lot of different things. But
were you ever galactic as growing up? Like, did you see yourself in this world at all?
No, like none of it. I mean, the whole thing really, I dyed my hair purple at the beginning of 2000, right at the beginning of 2017, January 2017, I dyed my hair purple. And that was really like when I changed. I mean, when I was like building Light in Space, I was already into like space, and I've always really been interested on like, from like a completely just like a side note, personal note, I've always been really interested in like quantum physics and just like all of that side of things with science and quantum computing and like what that whole world, which to me is like, even though it's science-based, it just sounds like magic. Like when you read about that stuff, it just sounds, it's just so incredible. And just and like all of the visuals of space itself and stars and star clusters and galaxies. And it's just so vibrant. And I think it's like the closest thing that we have that's like real, but also feels like magic because we know so little about it. But it's so massive and it's so close yet so far. And I just think that there's like a lot of, it can be both things. Like you can choose to look at like the dark side of it, or you can choose to look at the hopeful side of it. There's just a lot of like,
the juxtapositions
themes and metaphors. Yeah, it's like constant, and especially now with like what's going on in the world. I mean, even in COVID, the way that like the Pentagon has like decided to like publicly, I mean, they say that they're like reopening the UFO sort of investigative Pentagon. And it's like, they're not reopening it. They're just like being honest about it, or at least semi-honest about it. So like, I think it's only going to get more and more. So
this is, look, I didn't know we were going to go in this direction, but like entertain me for a second. What is your stance on UFOs?
Oh, I've always felt like this. Like there have to be UFOs. I mean, it's so self-centered of us, which is like classic humans, to think that we're the only things in a whole wide universe that we don't even fully understand or know. And like, there's just been so many accounts of different sort of UFO encounters, and so many over like spanning decades where like people's accounts mirror each other.
That's
And
what I
people say,
don't
like,
get. There's so many, Ariana. It
there's
does not
so
make
many.
sense.
What's your stance?
I mean, I've always, I've said this to my audience before, like I kind of have a very, I'm paranormal agnostic, conspiracy agnostic. Like I genuinely from a rational perspective, like I can't know, but leaning towards entertaining these things as very likely, because my rational brain really could talk away and put pins in every sort of thing and pop sort of the illusion or the glamour of it like very easily. When I was going into college, certainly I had like read a lot on, and this just comes from being like a magician background, just being a lot more skeptical and being like, well, if a magician can, pretend to be a psychic and do it better than most psychics, then clearly it's all bunk. That said, it is weird that the Pentagon has all this stuff. It is now saying it. I also think it's strange that there have been so many encounters throughout history. And my bigger question is like, why hasn't I don't think they have adequately been explained, a lot of the things that people have said.
I think there's probably a lot of stuff we don't know. And I think that honestly, who really knows? I guess just like from a logic standpoint, it's like there's all these different kinds of animals on this planet. There's all of you look at like, you see all of the ways in which they're like still discovering like certain animals and fishes and creatures like that live in like the deepest parts of the ocean that we like haven't even had technology to be able to like go down that far yet. And there's certain kinds of fish and creatures that can live under like insane amounts of water pressure and without sunlight and like all of this crazy stuff. So like, why would we assume? I guess the truth is you don't know, but I also don't know is the answer. Like I don't know one way or the other. So I'm not going to say I don't know and it doesn't exist. The possibility exists. That's like, you can, whether you say I believe it is a real thing or not, that's subjective at this point. But objectively, you have to at least acknowledge that the possibility exists. Because
absolutely. Yeah, and I was going to quote one of our acting teachers, Ron Burris. We love him, though. I hope he didn't say this the first day of class, because then you missed it. But he said something that I'm sure I brought it up before on this show to other people, that like uncertainty, it's never uncertainty that you're afraid of. It's your projection of what you think is going to happen.
Totally.
Which is, I think a lot of the time with people that doubt these kind of things, it's like, oh yeah, well, we don't know, but they also are bringing in their agenda of like, and it can't be, when they say that. They like, don't know, but also it's probably not true. It's like, well, how open-minded are you?
I guess you just don't, you don't know what you don't know. And I think that, that leads sort of, which we don't have to get on this topic, but I think that in general, human beings specifically really do like fear what they don't know. And the idea that like, if it's something that you can't understand, that inherently makes it bad. And I think that that's something that obviously bleeds into a lot of things, but I think that's probably where that comes from.
You know what? I do sort of want to go in this direction. It might be kind of parallel to this, which is the quote associated with "You never were my boyfriend." Your dog. Imagination is the only weapon in the war against reality.
Yeah.
That idea. What is this war against reality that are you still fighting vigilantly, you think?
Yeah, on the music I'm making now, I think even more so. I just think that, oh my God, that's such a large thing. Well, I found that quote and it really resonated with me. It's not my quote. And I think that being creative and allowing ourselves to sort of get lost in imagination, or to kind of make up alternate realities, or just to suspend our belief in reality. We get I guess programmed as we get older that becomes frivolous, and that's like a waste of time, or that there's like that's very childlike to imagine things and to believe in things, and that it's like this weird sort of I don't know, that you are somehow like a Peter Pan person if you like have that, if you're like connected to that still. And I think it's more that I'm not necessarily fighting against it. I'm just trying to sort of like lead by example and create spaces and worlds that allow people to step inside of those things.
Yeah, totally. Like oh man, as much as I was very excited to talk to you specifically because I've always had an obsession with theme parks, always had an
Yeah.
obsession with Disney, always had an obsession with the magic, like the mechanics behind the magic.
Yeah,
Like
I mean, you're a magician, so I feel like this is like right in your wheelhouse.
yes. And the idea of going to a nightclub experience, and that's really what it is. I can't speak for everybody why they go out on a Friday night, they dress up, they spend thousands of dollars for bottle service and have this hyped up, it is very much putting themselves in a alternative reality trance state. Now, sometimes I think people do that because they are told that's the cool thing they should be doing, which is one version of reality. Then I
For
think
sure.
there's some people like me who are like, I want to just like get away from it all and occupy my headspace in a totally different realm.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you do you look at people that come to your shows ever? Do you look out and you're like, oh yeah, this is some basic reality hacking going on over there. These people, bottle service over there. They don't really want to fight this war with me. They just want to be part of the glamour. This is so ego driven. Like, do you ever see that? I'm sort of curious your stance on that as it relates to like nightlife as a whole being generally very egoic.
What a good question. Well, we worked really, really hard. That was actually a big thing when we started the show, was that so there is no VIP section. There is all the tickets are general admission. There is no, you can't like buy your way into a different experience.
Oh, interesting.
So like that was like a very big part of the show that I built. And actually this time around, which we didn't end up doing it obviously because of COVID, but we were actually about to be doing it wasn't going to be called a VIP ticket, but effectively we were partnering with Live Nation to do a very specific sign up where you got like a special sort of like a secondary experience during the show. And that was going to be the first time we were doing that. And I was really like working on, okay, how do I create different, it was going to be a track basically. So it wasn't necessarily a VIP experience. It was just that you could get a special ticket, or there was going to be like a lottery or a sign up for a special ticket where you were like integrated into the show as an audience member. But I've definitely, I mean, listen, when you're doing a show like this, you're not exempt from nightlife stuff. We've dealt with all sorts of, we've done things at venues where I'm like, oh, you know what, actually the vibe of this venue and the way that this venue is run, because it's attached to a hotel or whatever, that's not really our ethos. And so the audience was different. And when we were at House of Yes, the audience was like very much a part of our show. The audience was very much our people. But there was like, there were certain instances where, there was like a bachelorette party that came in last minute and like they like didn't know anything was going on. They just like wanted to go to House of Yes. And House of Yes is ultimately a business. So like they're gonna like let that bachelorette party in, and that's fine, And what I think happens, and what I've been told at least, because I've never been to Light and Space. I've only performed at Light and Space,
Right.
So I don't know fully what it's like. I just know what people tell me, and I can see people obviously when I'm performing. But I think I'd like to think at least that the like core of the show and the like heart of the show and what we want, my main collaborator on the show is this amazing production designer named Seth Kirby, who has been working in nightlife and concert production and stuff for, I mean, years. He's married to Animatronic from the Scissor Sisters, who's an iconic band from the 90s. And he helped them build their stage show. And I was introduced to him through another amazing designer in London named Johnny Blue Eyes, who was the creative director and stylist for Lana Del Rey. And I just got very lucky and met a lot of people that knew so much more than me about what I was looking to do. And they really guided me, and they didn't try and like explain anything. They just were like, they just showed me the way in a lot of ways. And I feel very fortunate because the show was made with like a purity of heart and wanting people to really just I wanted people to come out of that show being like, wow, I haven't had a night like that in a really long time. And that was really like what I wanted. I just wanted people to be like, that's the most fun I've had since I can remember. And I wanted it to feel truly, what's the word? Inclusive. And those are like really lofty things to try and make a show.
Yeah.
They're really like very air talky. And I just was like, the only way I know how to do this is to just make it with just that intention, like in everything.
That's what I was going to say. It has to come through your heart. They have to pick up on it.
And I think that we do that. And so it's been really interesting because we've done the show in 3 different cities and many different venues. And the audience is very much, at this point, because the show is still kind of young, we don't have we have our people that come to our shows now. Like, it doesn't matter where we are, but inherently you're always going to have like a certain crowd. That's because it's at a House of Yes, or it's at a Public Arts, which is like a downtown in Manhattan club. So like that was a much more like club kid, the way that you're thinking of it, scene. And it was really interesting because when we did that show, the audience definitely, it was like had a more of like a voyeuristic feel to it, where they felt more hesitant to jump in. But what was so cool was that because this intention is in the show, I like watch people sort of melt, and I watch people kind of let go of maybe worrying about looking dumb or whatever, because it looks so fun, and the people who are joining in look free, and there's this feeling of that it feels like it's safe to do it. And I watch people who I think normally in other circumstances might not feel comfortable to kind of let go and dance or put glitter on themselves. We have a glitter bar at every show, and everything in the show is designed to make you feel safe to just to be. And that's like my biggest goal. That's my goal of every show we ever do forever. I mean, my goal is to grow the show to be bigger than it is, and it will still be the challenge and the point. So yeah. I think that, nightlife definitely does have like an egocentric kind of see and be seen vibe, and our show is purposefully trying to work against that, or not. I don't even want to say work against it, because it's a part of it. It's trying to work with it.
In a way, this is imagination acting as a weapon against the reality of nightclub life.
100%.
Like this totally makes sense. You're like absolutely trying to get people. The reality of it is that the first of all, I think most nightlife is like totally based on fantasy anyways. Like it is, like I mentioned, it's trying to hyper stimulate people and get them in a place where their senses are very much out of control, and people spend money than they wouldn't have, and then therefore that becomes the reality,
right? And
that's the reality everybody buys into, and you're like, I think there's another way here,
right? Exactly. This doesn't have to be the reality. We can do something else. And so I think that that's what we try for, and that's what I see. And I always feel very like, whenever I get on stage for that show specifically, more than touring, even more than because I still tour as a band, and like we do like regular band show stuff. But whenever we do Light and Space specifically, when I get on, I always start the show sort of like in the middle of the room. And whenever I start the show, from the first time we ever did it, I always feel like it's almost like I have this thing with the audience where I'm like, you can all relax. Like, you're good. Like, you're in our house. We've got you. You're fine. For the next 2 hours. Like, you're good. And that's really nice. It's probably the first time in my life that I ever made something that felt like it was like about me, but it wasn't totally about me, which I think was like a very different experience as a performer.
I was going to say, like, so we have this version of your life you're living, and then we sort of created another reality, which is like Ariana and the piano. But what about like the third reality now, which is like Ariana, the rock star, pop star, like Ariana as like peak but I don't even think like Britney Spears is even the best example of this. Like maybe Ariana as like Mick Jagger. Could
Oh my
that
god,
ever
that's sweet
happen?
of you to say. I mean, I don't know. I mean, well, that would be nice. I think if that were to happen, that would basically be like light and space times like 5,000.
But
Yeah, I
also
get.
it
I
would
mean, it
like
gets.
it would probably ruin things because also he was so about just like, all the groupies and the drugs. And I mean, that was like
I
very
don't know. I don't know if that would happen. I don't think I'm gonna be. I don't think we're gonna like lose me to my groupies. And it's not the world is not the
You're
same.
telling
And
everybody that this guy wasn't ever your boyfriend. So, I mean, maybe you're more available now. I don't know what do people around.
yes, yes, I'm available, but no. I mean, I
Do
think
people
that
ask you
that
about that
world.
song a lot? Are they like, first of all, when that song came out, were people like, did you have this? I hate these kind of questions, but
No, it's fine.
we have to ask. Did you have somebody come to you that may have been involved with you romantically, either like very close to that song or before that was like,
Oh yeah,
I
no,
know
I
a
like.
lot about this. This was me. This was me, wasn't it?
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah, 100%. Everybody in my life knew who it was about. There was like no question about it. Like he was my, it was funny enough. Actually, we ended up dating for like a very long time, very seriously after that. But we dated on and off for like almost a year, and he was really poorly behaved. And I was like, I'm not doing this. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And we were like never officially together. And but the song idea came out of like my own life experience, but also in having that life experience and like talking to other girls. But I mean, this is girls and boys. I think this is like dating in the 21st century in general, where like with apps and all of the myriad of ways we can be connected to people, how easily it is to just like not commit to anyone, and how there's this weird hybrid situation that goes on now where people.
Open loops. Do, do. Open loops. Open loops. Open loops. Open loops. You must listen to the open loops, a theme park for absurd beliefs and systems of integration between the mind and the creative spirit. Open loop.